former reality TV host tests positive for COVID-19. Can you guess which former reality TV show host tested positive for COVID-19?
Mario Lopez?
Oh, jeez. We already know.
Well, are we talking about Donald?
I mean, we're not talking about tequila here, are we?
Well, we know if it was Tia Tequila, chances are she would come down with something else.
The opinions expressed in the following are those of its participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the producers and the Six Talk Podcast Network. Also, the following contains mature material and mild language, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Discretion is advised.
And the podcast now begins for this Thursday night, October the 1st, 2020. This is episode 25 of the Anime Roundtable version 2. Mike Nicolas, once again at 6 points in the Toronto West End, joined as usual by James Austin and Kevin Ng. Once again, you can get in touch with us. Email us, animeroundtable@gmail.com. We're on Twitter and Instagram at Anime Roundtable. AnimeRoundtable.com is our website with show notes and past episodes, and we'll mention the Discord with hopes we can do something with that in the near future. And don't forget, please give us a review wherever you get your podcasts, whether it be Apple or Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or the like. And hopefully it's a positive one since it'll help us out immensely. So we're taking a slightly different approach to the episode this week. We are beginning to tape this episode on the Thursday evening, and here's why. Over the last month or so, we have talked on and off about the streaming acquisition by Bell Media of the original Sailor Moon television series for their Crave service here in Canada. And since the announcement and subsequent premiere, there has been a little buzz. Various Canadian celebrities and personalities have expressed their happiness about it on various social media platforms to the point it has actually trended on Twitter briefly, often heralding it as a flashback to when they were younger. It has even gotten to the point where the show has appeared on Crave's homepage as a staff pick. Now, as we have talked about it on this show, we've been careful not to make too much out of all of these developments in terms of the future of anime on Canadian broadcast and streaming services, especially in light of all the other things we've been known to talk about here. Nonetheless, when I looked at the screen grab of the Crave homepage this morning, something caught my attention that I'd like to flesh out a little bit. And who better to help us out with that than the guy who broke the story on the acquisition? Jesse Betteridge, the host of the Zannen Canada podcast, joins us from Vancouver. And Jesse, thanks again for doing this on such short notice.
Mike, it's always a pleasure to be on Anime Roundtable, and so it's no problem at all. And hey, I'm more than happy to talk about this because if you follow me on social media, you've probably noticed that I have been hyper fixated on this subject for a few weeks now, and I feel no shame about that at all because there are worse things you could be hyper fixated on in this particular period of time.
Oh, no kidding. Okay. So here's what caught my attention, and anyone familiar with Crave will know this. Crave's service, for better or worse, acts like an umbrella for a handful of banners. And those banners will add to the cost of your subscription there, depending on what you want. The basic subscription at $10 gets you most of Bell Media's programming, their acquisitions, and mainly Showtime programming from the States. An extra $10 gets you HBO stuff, which we've talked about before. Let's not go there. Then at the top level, a final additional $10 gets you the Stars programming. So you can be looking at anywhere from $10 to $30 per month. The upshot is if Bell Media acquires the streaming rights for a title or network, It's likely going to be on Crave in some form. And entries for various programs on Crave will have a logo basically telling you what banner they're originally from, like the HBO banner or Showtime banner, or in the case of Bell Media properties, the broadcast channel they were airing on. In the case of Sailor Moon, I noticed the logo of WoW Unlimited. It was your tweet that I noticed all of this on, Jesse. And I know this isn't lost on you either, since when we first hung out at Anime North last year, you told me a little bit about WoW Unlimited, and we speculated on their potential plans. And I know you've talked about this for some length on Zannen, and I want to share that primer with our listeners as well. Where do we start? Where do we want to start with WoW Unlimited?
Well, I guess we should probably start with what this company is. So WoW Unlimited is a joint venture, or rather, it's not a joint venture. It is the result of the merger between Rainmaker Studios, also formerly known as Mainframe Studios, who have now created a new offshoot.
Mainframe?
Yeah, a new offshoot studio, which they have called Mainframe, which is not the same thing as the original Mainframe, rest assured. So it is the result of the merger between Rainmaker and Frederator Studios. So Frederator Studios is the company of Fred Sabert, who is instrumental in many very important U.S. brands over the years, like MTV and Cartoon Network. He was responsible for the pilots of many of the most influential Cartoon Network shows, like Dexter's Laboratory. And then when he formed his studio, Frederator Studios, they also were the producer for Adventure Time. And then that company went on to run a Cartoon Hangover before they merged with Rainmaker to become WoW Unlimited. So this company is something that's seen as having a lot of potential. Whether or not they've fulfilled that potential quite yet is not clear. It's run both by Sabert himself, but also Michael Hirsch. So Michael Hirsch, he's the former head of Nelvana, and also he was the co-founder of Teletoon, and in addition to a number of other companies. So we have this company symbolizes the partnership of two titans in Canadian and American television production, specifically children's television production. So the biggest things that are associated with WoW Unlimited so far don't actually have anything to do with Crave. They've produced the Castlevania series for Netflix, which of course is not for children. And they've also been responsible for Reboot the Guardian Code. So, the fruits of the labor have varied greatly.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys have talked about Reboot the Guardian Code on this show at all. It's not something I would recommend focusing an episode on, but if you ever have a chance, just check out episode 10 of that show. It's remarkable. It is just amazing that they could produce something that tone deaf and their own audience, or who their audience is. It's incredible. Rest assured.
I just want to note, Fred Sabert, he stepped down about a month ago. It's noted here that he stepped down from.
Oh, he has stepped down from WoW Unlimited?
Yes. It was noted in an article about a month ago.
Okay, I missed that then.
Okay, here I'll send you the link in late August, apparently. But that's
very recent, yeah. But anyway, but nonetheless, Sabert's not involved anymore. But it's still his company, Frederator Studio, formed.
I think he stepped down from the major operations, but he's
still involved with the company. I believe.
Oh yeah, he still has some involvement.
Yeah, absolutely,
by all accounts.
But right now, WoW Unlimited, it seems like it's a company that they're not quite sure what it's going to be, but there are plans that are kind of brewing in the background. So they do have a partnership with Crave, and the reason that the reason behind that partnership is the potential to produce or license youth programming. So Crave is run by Bell Media, of course, and Bell Media is one half of our private media duopoly. And traditionally,
Yes.
yeah, and traditionally they have not dealt with like children's or youth programming really at all. Despite the fact that we have so many children's broadcasters in Canada, none of them are run by Bell Media. They're all run by either Chorus, by what did
Mainly Chorus. Mainly Chorus, actually.
Yeah, Chorus, the company. What's the?
Is
it DHX or they're a new company
like
now,
that,
right?
yes, the company that runs Family Channel now.
Yeah.
The former Disney licensor. Well, until Disney actually branded themselves here.
Wild Brain owns a few brands, and there's a couple of independent ones, like Tuna Vision, which is actually run out of the Maritimes, and they're independent. So the idea was that there was a partnership that formed between Crave and WoW Unlimited. And the idea was that WoW Unlimited would launch a new linear channel, which would be Bell Media's youth brand, essentially, that would go under their umbrella. And
backtracking a little bit on the story, that channel was pegged to have been the former Comedy Gold.
Yes. So Comedy Gold shut down about a year and a half ago now, I think. And the plan
September
was that
1st last year, I believe it was.
Okay, so a little over a year. And the plan was that Comedy Gold would become the WoW channel or whatever. We don't know what it was going to be called. I'm assuming it's going to be WoW World, because that's the brand that you see used on Crave. And there's already a WoW channel that is a Chinese language service in Canada.
Okay.
So no one's really sure why the station hasn't launched yet. They keep saying that there was an expectation that it had to launch by a certain point due to business or for regulatory reasons, but it never did. We've heard a variety of excuses, like the fact that they need more investors lined up or a more reliable source of content. It's not really clear. The investor reports are still saying that they intend to launch the station. So who knows what's going to happen with that? We might see the station, we might not. But right now, they are a brand that's under Bell's umbrella that is kind of being treated like a station, but without a broadcaster.
Yeah, and at this point, so the station itself remains in mothballs, but still there.
So in relation to Bell's sort of non-existent history with youth programming, you'll notice that there's not a whole lot of kids programming on Crave if you've ever browsed through the service. It's a little better than it used to be, but it's nothing compared to basically any streaming competitor service that you can find out there.
True.
So WoW Unlimited has been tasked with basically building Crave's kids section. In fact, the whole reason there is a kids section now on Crave, which wasn't there 2 years ago, was because they had been licensing content. And they had a partnership with Wildbrain or DHX, and they had a few titles on the service for a little while. One of those was the actual first anime on Crave, which was Spider Riders. But because, of course, Wildbrain is a competitor, that deal didn't even last for 2 years. And you can actually find all that stuff on Tubi now. They had a few other titles like the Super Mario Brothers Super Show and a few other things.
I actually pouted about not being able to get the channel for that as a kid. That's a long.
You can watch it whenever you want now, Mike.
Looking back on it, I wasn't missing a thing. Okay, so what's under the WoW umbrella now in terms on Crave? Sailor Moon aside, from what you understand,
they have Reboot, of course. The original Reboot. They do have another anime series called Zozo Zombies, which I think you can actually find a few other places as well. But that is a very much for kids kind of series. I thought it was Korean at first, but it actually is a Japanese production.
Okay.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I think they have like.
They have Reboot. Do they have Beasties then too? Or
they do not. They only have Reboot because the license. That's the only license that they have, or that Rainmaker Studios still had that they were able to to use. I think the rights to basically all their other stuff is kind of scattered now because
No Shadow Raiders?
no Shadow Raiders. No, I don't know who owns Shadow Raiders right now. Beast Wars is owned by Hasbro, for sure. I don't know. I'm not sure about Shadow
But that
Raiders.
makes it even weirder because Beast Wars and Beasties are the same thing. So
They are, yeah.
Yep.
for those who don't know,
Yeah.
and some people forget, right?
Yeah, but overall, not a robust selection of children's programming on Crave. So one other thing that okay, so let me take a step back. A couple of years ago, the vice president for the WoW network, or the television streaming portion of WoW Unlimited, Marnie Schulman, was posting on Twitter about interest in anime, and a few people were talking to her about that. She doesn't go on Twitter very often. In fact, she's kind of left it behind, from what I can see. But one thing that she mentioned all the way back then was that she was interested in Sailor Moon. She used to actually work on Show Me. She was one of the programmers for Show Me, which was Chorus's old streaming service.
It was Chorus and Rogers had a
Chorus and Rogers joint partnership.
Yes, and that was that came out at the same time as Crave, and it barely lasted a year. And I know
it was more than a year.
They pushed it on Rogers subscribers, just like they push a lot of other things on us.
And I am still it blows my mind that they just abandoned that service.
I thought they had potential too. It's crazy because they pushed it real hard, just like they've done with the Jays and baseball and Sportsnet. So it's like
exactly they pushed it so hard. They developed a PS4 app for it too, which Crave has yet to do for their service. And if they start getting more anime, that's something you're going to hear people complaining about is the lack of video game console.
And we've talked remember we talked about Sony's. I know it's not really the same thing, but Sony wanting to leverage their anime properties into their PlayStation a little bit more, or into their strategies a little bit more.
But I guess
for sure.
Given apps and stuff like that, if you think about it, though, it's like, I like it on my video game console and stuff like that. But I think a lot of them go towards Roku and Apple TV and the things like that, because those are the bigger oceans, from my understanding.
Yeah,
that's why you see it first, along with the phones.
Crave only recently got a Roku app out. I've recently pivoted from PlayStation to Roku because I guess I'm old now. And that's how you know you're old, is when you use Roku.
Dude, I have an Apple TV and a Chromecast sitting here.
Yeah. But yeah, they only recently launched that app. But Show Me was the I guess quote unquote competitor. Really, the only reason those two services were originally launched was so that they can take licenses from Netflix. Back in the days when you could imagine a service media companies being able to take down Netflix or weaken them. It's unthinkable today. Not even Disney could take them down.
At the time, Netflix came into Canada. I know they were upset. I know that the Canadian incumbents weren't happy about it, so they did start these services. And then when
some of them tried to play the Canadian content game and say, "Oh, we're Britain," it's like, really, guys?
And as Show Me went down about a year after, I know that the CRTC really gave them the business. They got on their case.
It was
how disappointed they were
about that.
They gave up on that.
It's because they wanted to get subscriber information from them, and Netflix never complies with those types of requests. And I think it's worth emphasizing, just because a lot of people can be confused about this sometimes, is that Netflix is not regulated. There is no regulation of streaming services in Canada. But Netflix does put a fair amount of money into Canadian productions. And I mean, that's kind of their game, is to
basically a philanthropic.
To try
they did make the promise, right? And that was one of the things they tried to go against them and stuff like that, saying we're in the Wild West, we can't do anything. Canadian productions are going to go down because everyone's going to be streaming instead of watching linear television. So
And the interesting part is, like, when you look, and sorry, and then I'll let you continue your thought, Jesse. Since then, Netflix has been one of the big drivers for CBC's shows outside of Canada. with its convenience. And I think Schitt's Creek was shown on Netflix outside of Canada.
That's where most people outside of Canada watch Schitt's Creek, is on Netflix. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, continue your thought.
I was just talking about Show Me, how Chorus and Shaw and Rogers rather abandoned their streaming service very quickly over the course of less than, I think, 2 years, if maybe a little more, maybe a little over 2 years. I can't. It's all the whole timeline is just kind of mush in my head now. And like, it still blows my mind because of that decision, to this day, Chorus doesn't have a proper streaming outlet for all of their content, which is, almost half of English language content in the Canadian media system.
There's a new branding that I saw. Where does Stack TV sit in
Stack TV is a spin-off. It's a channel you can subscribe to if you're already an Amazon Prime Video subscriber. So it's a double paywall. It's double paywalled content. Now, if you don't have a cable subscription and you just want a few of the channels that Chorus owns, it's not a bad deal. But just keep in mind that it's still not true streaming. It's not like a true on-demand streaming service. You get some on-demand, but it's like watching on-demand through your cable box. You have ads. You don't have a full library selection. It's quite fundamentally different from what Show Me was. And it's a real shame they let it go, because even if it was losing money, their whole situation would be very different now if they still had that. And there's just a big question mark over how they're going to handle streaming. And right now their business strategy is to just ignore it and keep people watching linear television, which is why you can't really, there's no real good streaming options for Adult Swim content, for instance, unless you have some kind of cable subscription.
Because they own the Course runs Adult Swim in Canada.
Yes, of course.
Just to update that.
Yeah, of course.
And then go ahead.
Yeah. So again, Marnie used to work for that company, and then she mentioned that on Twitter, this was a while back, when she was just kind of talking with people about acquiring content for WoW Unlimited, that she was interested in anime, and they had looked at Sailor Moon for Show Me back when it was first being licensed around 2014, but it just never happened for whatever reason. Yeah, and so she was communicating this interest quite a while ago, and then she doesn't post on Twitter. She kind of went dark, but so she mentioned back then the interest in Sailor Moon, and so it's not entirely surprising that WoW Unlimited wound up licensing the title for Crave now, but it does seem that to fill that sort of youth content void in Crave, WoW is maybe looking into anime now, which I think is a smart strategy, because there's so many titles that aired. I mean, when YTV was running their Bionics block, it was posited as youth content, and it's kind of a limited way of approaching it, of course, but the important thing is that when you can, even if you have to sell it from a certain angle, getting anime on a service like Crave is extremely significant.
Yeah, and as I said, it trended for a little while.
Yeah, I didn't expect that to happen. I knew that Crave running Sailor Moon was going to be a big deal. I did not expect so much discussion to happen about it that day that it resulted in Sailor Moon to trend on Twitter in Canada. And I should emphasize, it's very rare that an anime trends in Canada and not the US. And it actually got to the point later in the day where Crave was trending on Twitter as well because of the Sailor Moon announcement, which is not something I've ever seen.
Wow.
And it is kind of funny because people were so overwhelmingly positive about it. They were glad they could watch Sailor Moon. They were glad that Crave had it. And it's just kind of funny because this is the first time I think I've ever seen people positive about having to subscribe to Crave. You almost always just hear Crave is usually discussed as a nuisance. People wonder why they have to subscribe to the service and why they can't just have everything on Netflix.
Yeah. I mean, let's backtrack from the point where Show Me left the business.
Yeah.
And parallel to all that was what happened to Crave. And Crave, through its part, people were wondering if Crave was about to go under. But quietly, Crave just kept adding to itself. HBO is the most significant one. Showtime, obviously, and that's why. And now they're at the point they're at now. They just kept trudging, if nothing else. But then they became, Bell became the exclusive home for Showtime. Bell became the exclusive home for HBO programming in Canada, and they rolled that as part of Crave.
And that's one of the things that you'll hear people complain about for Crave a lot, is that it's the service that's denying us HBO Max.
Right.
Yeah. And Crave supposedly has as I discussed last time I was on the show, Crave has a deal with HBO Max for exclusive content, except it doesn't cover all HBO Max original content. It only seems to cover everything that's not animated, or at the very least, things that were not produced by Cartoon Network Studios.
Yeah, just things not directly produced by Warner Media, seemingly.
That's not true. Like Close Enough, which was made by Cartoon Network Studios, that's on Netflix.
Oh,
and it's branded as a Netflix original. Like, it blows my mind that AT&T and Warner would allow their competitor Netflix to brand their streaming show as a Netflix original outside of the United States. That seems really ill-advised, in my opinion. Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, what do I know, right?
Else to that.
Yeah.
That's my guess anyway. But at the very least, maybe there was a pick and choose for Bell in terms of what they wanted. Who knows? As I said, though, last time, Warner Media, through HBO Max, has the Friends reunion coming up on that whenever they get around to eventually shooting that. I wonder who will have dibs on that in Canada.
Who knows?
Maybe through the deal, Bell Media and Crave have that. That was a global television show when it aired back then. So, of course, I guess.
A lot's changed since then. So
yeah, obviously a lot's changed how many years has it been since Friends went off the air? One would think that the Friends reunion will end up in Bell's umbrella when it happens here in Canada.
Maybe
it would be hilarious if it doesn't.
Yeah, that's possible. I also wouldn't be surprised if Netflix gets it outside of the United States as well.
No, that's where. Yeah, that's a
possibility. Yeah,
there's a bunch of ways that could go now. So we're coming back a little bit now, and WoW Media and making their partnerships, getting Sailor Moon. I guess it was them getting Sailor Moon and putting it on Crave.
Yeah,
Sailor Moon's rights in North America belong to Viz, if I'm not mistaken, the original series.
Viz has all of Sailor Moon right now in North America.
Mm-hmm. So
this has been a pain point for people for quite a while, because of course Viz is notorious for streaming their content exclusively on Hulu in the United States, and it's kind of funny because people. Okay, so the fact that Sailor Moon premiering on Crave was such a big deal is kind of funny, because it actually has been available on Tubi for about 3 years now, since 2017. It's only the subtitled version, but it's there. It's available.
And it's the whole series, right? Is it the whole series?
The entire thing.
Because when the news came out, and then I looked around just to see what other services could possibly have it, and I saw Tubi, and then I actually looked on my Tubi app here, and I was able to watch it. So in one sense, it doesn't feel like a big deal.
But okay, so it goes to show that we make a big deal about being able to watch anime in Canada. Where the availability is pretty good for anime fans. Like, it's pretty rare that a new simulcasting show or a new show that is currently simulcasting isn't available. Very rare. That almost never happens now. Catalog titles are a bit of a different situation, though. But the companies like Funimation, Viz, their goal pretty much is to, if they can, make the content available. But I think that this shows that it's not just enough to make it available. You get an entirely different reaction when you put it somewhere where people can actually find it. It should be emphasized that when Crave launched Sailor Moon, it was on the front page of their banner. Regardless of how you accessed Crave, regardless of what you have watched on Crave, regardless of what your kind of preferences for content are, anybody who signed into Crave, the first thing they would see would be that banner advertising Sailor Moon. The reason is because
Basically,
Crave doesn't really...
Basically, the screen grab I saw.
Yeah, and it was like, it's a giant banner. It fills your screen. It's inescapable. Anyone who used Crave that day would have seen it. And that's also because Crave doesn't use algorithms like Netflix does. So something that's kind of seen as a flaw with them is a reason why visibility was so high for Sailor Moon. And this ties into what I was saying last time when I was on the show, how it's really important for anime to be a part of like the Canadian media ecosystem, because as much as like nerds like to say like, I don't have to watch TV or mainstream stuff, I got all my obscure streaming services to suit my needs, but only those like specialty services are only going to reach the people who already know about the content on there and who want to find the content on there. You're not going to reach the masses on there. A service like Crave, which has all of this stuff under its umbrella, including HBO content, including Showtime content, including stuff like Canada's Drag Race, which just finished a couple of weeks ago. And I am very certain that people who were tuning into Crave to watch Canada's Drag Race just a few weeks ago probably are part of the audience now watching Sailor Moon.
Because they probably saw that logo when logging in.
Yeah, exactly. And it's important because the people who saw this, they're not anime fans. They are just regular viewers, many of whom watched Sailor Moon on TV when they were kids. And
this is the let's not read into too much into this part.
Okay.
No, I mean, is it? No, go ahead, because
if you
go worth reading into it.
I think it is. And I talked about I talked about this in the most recent episode of my my podcast, which at the time of this recording hasn't gone
on. We're going to plug it too at the end.
Yeah. But
continue.
But if you look at the people who were tweeting about this, they're not anime fans. They're just normal people who probably haven't watched Sailor Moon at all or sought it out since it left television.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not that they forgot about it or anything. It's just they never thought to look for it. And like,
brought back some wonderful memories for a lot of them.
Absolutely.
It would be interesting to see that, because obviously we finally have it in Canada in dub form, since, as we said, we only had subtitle. But it would be interesting, their reactions, because it's been so long and they redubbed the whole thing with an American cast and stuff like that. So I'm intrigued to see how, probably it was no rain off anyone's back or anything like that, but I'm sure there might have been a few that might have noticed.
If you go on like Twitter and search Sailor Moon Crave, you can see all like over a week's worth of reactions, and they're all great. The majority of people didn't care. Some were a little upset, but most people seem to be okay with it. They like this new dub, and I think
just
it's
the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah,
I mean, because it's just the nostalgia goggles and this nostalgia play. You never know how it's going to end up, right? Especially when rights transfer and they're like, okay, we're going to do it our way now, just to get consistency across the series.
Yeah.
Oh, I wonder if there's one line, just like in the Eva redub, was there one line people got really upset about?
No, I probably not. I think if there's anything where people are going to have a reaction to in the dub, it's probably Luna's voice. But
you know what? And Luna's original English voice was at Fan Expo all those years ago. So we met her. Jill, I forgot her last name.
Jill Frappier, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I did meet her. Wonderful lady to talk to too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so let's start reading into this a little bit, and talk about the potentials. Kevin, first of all, are you there?
Yes.
Because this is where
here and there.
Yeah, this is where we can start to say, okay, well, WoW made that agreement with I guess worked with Viz on this one. And Viz has a bit that they put on Hulu. Could they pluck something else out of that?
Inuyasha? How is
Well,
Inuyasha
play your wish
That's what
list.
I'm
Play your
wondering.
wish list, Kevin. Yeah,
Yeah,
play
I
your
want to
wish.
hear your wish list, Kevin. I have a feeling
Yeah.
it's going to be the same as many people's wish list when it
But
comes
let's
to
hear
this.
your
What
wish
that I
list.
want? What I
because
want on
let's-
Crave?
No, well, the thing is, what titles do you hope that
What is Viz
WoW
denying you with their Hulu exclusivity?
and because basically maybe that you can put that on a wish list for what WoW could try to pull off next time for Crave. If there is more to come. What's on that wish list? Inuyasha, let's start with that.
I haven't been paying too much attention to what's available in Canada and what's available in I am not. I just know like Viz has always been kind of a mixed bag on where it's available in Canada. But yeah, I'm wondering about Inuyasha actually. That was the first thing that came to mind.
I know. Like, depending on how old you are, when you think Rumiko Takahashi, you think of maybe a trio or a quartet of titles. If you're younger, it's likely to be Inuyasha. If you're Neil Sinclair's age, Urusei Yatsura.
Ranma.
Urusei Yatsura in Neil's case.
Yeah,
Trust me on that.
Yeah.
But in my age, it's for my age, and I'll date myself to some degree. It becomes a mix between Maison Ikoku and Ranma.
Well, they don't have Maison Ikoku anymore.
I get that, but just saying. When it comes to Rumiko Takahashi.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's go back to your wish list.
Well, I guess see, I don't know, to be honest. I didn't really have. I'll be honest. I don't have much of a wish list just because, I would just rather see these things on linear TV. That would get me more excited. But JoJo's dub would be interesting if that's not available. I don't know what's the situation with One Punch Man. Or actually, no, that's not even Viz for the anime. What am I saying?
It is. Viz has.
Viz has that. Yes.
The season 1 is on Netflix for the dub. For
The anime?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Or Death Note even.
Death Note is also on Netflix. Quite a few
okay.
a few Viz titles are on Netflix. But the thing is that, and dub and sub, but a lot of the time they don't have the whole thing. They actually have Inuyasha dub and sub, but they only have 54 episodes. Yeah,
There's a development there that somebody
I guess
more of Inuyasha is on one of the other servers.
And I bring up Inuyasha because Yashahime is going to be coming out the next week or so. So I'm just
it'll be out probably when this episode's out.
Okay, so then I'm just thinking if people want to go back and watch Inuyasha, then they'll realize, wait, it's not streaming. What?
Yeah.
That's probably the reaction that some people will have.
Yeah.
But yeah, if they want that bigger audience, yeah, you would do something bigger like Inuyasha, or for example, Sailor Moon is a no-brainer because it was a cultural symbol way back when it first launched in the mid-90s and stuff like that. And it just took off and it became a part of the Canadian fabric for a short period of time. And there were so few shows like that. It's hard to replicate that, I think, again, for Crave to find that. Maybe you could go and get Dragon Ball Z or something like that and put that on there, but I'm sure it's probably been seen already on other streaming services, of course, and stuff like that.
That could be on Funimation.
I think the key thing to remember is that, and again, I want to stress that I have no idea if Crave is going to get anything else. For all we know, it could just be Sailor Moon, and that's it.
Yeah, and this is probably the last part of the conversation.
That's what I was thinking.
And I would feel it's more a one-off in my mind.
We'll see. I'm personally keeping my fingers crossed that we're going to see more stuff, and Inuyasha is at the top of my list too, and Ranma 1/2. I want to see those two for sure.
Well, it's, as I said, since this has happened, and as I said, we're reading a little bit because I guess there's a little bit of potential now that we're at this point. So there's it's an almost anything can happen scenario now.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty optimistic scenario. And it's not a bad scenario. It's somewhat optimistic.
A lot of people are just shocked that Crave got an anime at all. And because Crave is just not, I think that's another part of why Sailor Moon had such a big impact when it showed up on the service, is that people didn't think of Crave as a service that would have something like anime, and this has now like kind of challenged that and expanded their idea of what the service is capable of. So,
and if the feedback is good, anything can happen now. We are talking about we are talking about at least a company that's backed by part of the duopoly.
Yeah, it's I mean, I hate reinforcing that kind of thing, but that's just the reality we live in. And I'm going to say keep watching Sailor Moon on Crave. Like if you've already watched, if you have Crave, and I should emphasize it's on the lowest of those tiers you mentioned. It is on the lowest tier, the $9.99
because it's part of the Bell Media banners.
Yeah.
WoW is part of the Bell Media banner, so in the process, it falls under the $10 tier only.
Yes. So if you happen to have if you subscribed to Crave because of Sailor Moon, I let Crave know that. Like send them an email, tell them you want to see more anime. Most importantly, if you have Crave, watch Sailor Moon, put it on in the background. If you've watched it already, because you can follow. It's a very easy show to follow in the back when you put it on the background. If you know anybody who grew up in Canada in the 90s, just mention it to them, even if they're not someone who you associate with anime. I think there's a good chance that they watch Sailor Moon and would be interested in going back to it now. And if you know anybody with kids, that's another big thing, is that some people seem to be watching with their kids too, which is really great.
That's about as hokey as Mario Lopez watching episodes of Saved by the Bell with his daughter or something.
Oh God.
He mentions that actually. He actually has made jokes about that.
It's worth emphasizing though that a lot of these, with Viz Media, they got some stuff up here, but it's incomplete. So much is just locked down with Hulu right now. Rama 1/2, the most of Inuyasha. Inuyasha, the final act, has never broadcast or streamed in Canada before, which I think is kind of nuts.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
Let's go on. Let's go on.
So again, when Yashahime premieres, people might be looking for that, but it's just not streaming anywhere. And also, Naruto Shippuden, the dub part of the dub is on Netflix, not the whole thing. Same with Bleach. So you got all this incomplete content.
Yeah, Bleach would have been one.
Much of which is complete if you look at Hulu in the States. So, and it's not necessary for in order to have an impact. I think Sailor Moon kind of proved it. It doesn't have to be an exclusive, because Sailor Moon wasn't an exclusive. It's already on Tubi, but as long as you're putting it in front of people on a popular service where the mass eyeballs are, that's going to make all the difference. And it can be harder to find anime on Netflix too if you don't already watch anime on Netflix. But if Crave could put some of that stuff up front and center, I think that'd be really cool, because it would reach people who maybe haven't thought about those shows in years, because most of them can be pushed as youth programming and aired on TV already and have kind of a built-in audience. So
on that splash page, put it beside the splash page promo for Star Trek Picard, which by the way is also on the $10 tier.
Yeah,
they got CBS, some CBS all access stuff too.
Yeah.
So,
but the Sailor Moon thing was crazy. They put it. I don't know if you guys had the app on your phone, but they put on a push notification partway through the day too, which
I think I did. I do have the Crave app. I'll check my pushes, or my recent pushes. It's just that I don't have the subscription at this point in time. I'll probably resubscribe when Star Trek Picard season 2 begins. But it's still on my app, so I do see it. I do note that once in a while.
Yeah, but I think this also goes to show that it's important to think of anime as something that's not just for anime fans. I think that the distributor, both the distributors and broadcasters in Canada, I think that the trap they've fallen into is that anime is just thought of as something that only anime fans need to access, and there's no effort to get it to a broader audience. And Sailor Moon's kind of broken through that barrier a bit by being on Crave.
Well, I hope there's an appeal. There was always a long-term appeal to retro, and in various forms, whether it's in mainstream television shows, even sports, with teams wearing wearing old logos again. Sailor Moon kind of begins to fall into that in its own way. So seeing it on the air has brought back some really interesting comments through the week from some of the tweets I saw. Like I try I see a couple of names that have associations with places that I recognize. I think a CBC radio host shouted out.
Amanda Paris, the host of Marvin's Room. She had one of the most noteworthy tweets about it.
The one that caught my attention was Robin Doolittle.
Yeah, she tweeted about it too. Robin Doolittle, the author of the Rob Ford biography.
Yes, we mentioned that last episode. Yeah. She was well heralded for her work in uncovering all of that. Do we have any other noteworthy Canadian media personalities who noted that?
The managing editor of Mobile Syrup tweeted about it.
Oh, yes.
He was not happy about the fact that it was a different dub.
Can't win them all.
Yeah.
And I get it.
Yeah.
As I said, we met, Fan Expo years ago had an appearance by the Toronto cast, by that dub cast. That was basically Fan Expo's first foray into any anime programming. That was the centerpiece of their first year of anime programming, to have the dub cast of Sailor Moon at the time. So yeah, I get it. It was a big thing to have them. And then I think a couple years later they had the author of Mega Tokyo, but that's another story. So I get the nostalgia play, and it built up at least some good PR for a week or so. But
it's still getting a lot of attention.
Good attention.
That's really good. Like it only trended for a day. It's run its course in that respect, but people are still finding it. People are still posting about it online. I'm because I'm again hyper fixated on this. I am frequently checking tags like Crave and Sailor Moon and seeing people posting about it, and there are still people posting oh my god, 5 seasons of Sailor Moon on Crave. I love the new dub, stuff like that.
And some people praising Canada. Well, people praise Canada regardless. Sometimes.
That's always kind of weird, but, but
we're Canadian in that sense, I suppose.
Hey, I guess it's also helping people recognize the fact that the streaming situation is different up here.
That's right. Like we our shows talk at length about Canada and anime in Canada. I mean, you've taken that mantle to another level, Jess, and have done a great job with it. So
and I think that's a lot of people outside of Canada, especially in the US, just aren't aware of the fact that services like Hulu are only in the US. They don't understand the implications of that either.
Well, that's the mirror. That's the mirror at the 49th parallel that exists. The one-way mirror.
I gotta say, I'm just happy that people still love Sailor Moon. On a not just Sailor Moon is not just loved by Sailor Moon fans, quote unquote, or anime fans, quote unquote, but it's actually still this big cultural phenomenon, which you don't get to see in action very much. And I will say it's also very cool that because they have that new dub, they're exposing people to more what anime actually is, or just the normal format of anime. You turn it on, the first thing you see is a Japanese song. Which that's actually something that surprised a lot of people on social media. I noticed as well.
Oh, hearing the original Japanese version of the opening.
Yeah, the Sailor Moon says, right? So
yes.
At the very end.
No Sailor says in this, but it's getting people used to anime and opening them up to anime. So if they do happen to stumble on other anime shows, they may be more willing to check them out. And I think it's all just a part of making it accessible. Exposing it to people who might not otherwise seek it out, and destigmatizing it and stuff like that. And that's really 100%. Great.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess there isn't too much else to add to this. Which episodes of Zannen did you mention all of this? Must do a plug for your show.
Sure. So I did forget to mention at the beginning, I am host of the Zannen Canada podcast, which focuses on the connections between anime and Canadian media. We do retrospectives on shows that have had a cultural impact in both English speaking and French speaking Canada. Definitely check out the show episodes I've done focusing on the French shows like Goldorak and Candy Candy. I thought those are the most fun, and I think those are also the most interesting. We did one on Mini Fay, which was the first ever Canadian dub as well. And we devote entire episodes where we just rant about streaming services. I interview voice actors and other notable people. The most recent episode that is up at the time of this recording is my interview with Michelle Clough, who was a script adapter for Ocean Studios. She actually worked on Pretty Cure and Death Note and a few others. And we actually talk about Sailor Moon. We start the episode by talking about the Sailor Moon announcement on Crave. We get, talk about quite a bit about that. I have a new episode I'm editing right now, episode 72. Should be up probably around the same time this episode is up. And we go on about it for like almost an hour.
Like we've been doing here.
I thought this was going to be half an hour. And we really get into more specifically why this blew up and the implications and everything. So yeah, check that out. And yeah.
So Zannen website just
you can find it at zannen.ca, zannen.ca. I'm on Twitter at Zannen Canada. You can find me on Facebook. I have a coffee account as well, ko-fi.com/Zannen Canada. If you are a fan of my show and you like what I do, please contribute because it costs money to keep a podcast up. So,
no kidding. And you mentioned the I Miss Bionics blog. And
so I don't run I Miss Bionics. It's run by my good friend Jonathan Andrade. But you can find that at imissbionics.wordpress.com. It is the best source for Canadian related anime news. And if you want to read more about WoW Unlimited and the whole history of that channel and how it ties into the licensing of Sailor Moon, Jonathan has written extensively on it on that show, and I recommend checking it out.
Jesse, it was good to hear from you.
Always glad to be to join you guys. Hope we can meet in person again soon.
Oh God, who knows about that? Well, what's your situation now that we've hit I guess stage 2 here in Ontario? But what's the situation in BC?
It's up and down. Who knows? I don't want to say anything because it could be outdated. Yeah, it's gone up here. It's kind of up and down. I don't want to say too much because I don't know how the situation is going to change by the time this episode is actually out.
Hopefully the turnaround for this episode will be less than 3 days.
Yeah. Well, let's all weather through it and stay safe.
All we can do.
I know you've been working at home, so
yeah.
Thanks a lot, Jesse.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, when we get back, the rest of the stories. That's when the Anime Roundtable continues on the Six Talk Podcast Network.
Hey folks, my name is Brett and I'm one of the hosts of Skeleton House, an audio-only Let's Play podcast where my two friends Jess...
What is happening? Oh my god!
...and Steve...
Even he looks spooked.
...play through video games, and I edit them, add context, and act as your eyeballs. Also, we have a cat. Come check us out at skeletonhouse.buzzsprout.com or look up Skeleton House on your favorite podcast app. Or your least favorite podcast app. I'm not here to tell you how to live your life.
And the podcast now continues. We are now taping on Friday evening, October 2nd, 2020. Nicolas, Austin, and Ing back in conversation with you. And we are now joined by Mohamed Sharmarke. Glad you finally made it. Although, Mo, it sucks that you couldn't get in on the conversation last night.
Yeah, I totally missed out, guys. Eddie, next time.
Well, we tried to the listeners out there, we did try and brief Mo on our conversation with Jesse earlier. And he'll have an opinion. James, Kevin, do you have any thoughts after that conversation with Jesse?
It was interesting to hear about WoW, because I had heard of them in the past, but then forgot about them until that conversation.
Yeah, I didn't really think of them. Like, as I said, Jesse was the first person to kind of get them on my own personal radar. I'd never heard of them, but looking at their lineage and the people involved and what they've been involved in, it's a bit of a name. So it's kind of impressive in that sense.
It's really a matter of what they're going to do with that name.
To be determined, I suppose.
I guess it's the thing is, we do talk about the footprint in Canada of the media landscape, and I guess the biggest takeaway that you never really think about in our minds as regular Canadians is Bell and CTV are one of the biggest media brands in Canada. They have all these channels and all these things, and to think they don't have like a youth or kids oriented like channel after all these years that they have to rebuild again, and after all these mergers and acquisitions and stuff like that. It's kind of crazy.
Just for the listeners, especially those who are not in Canada, let's backtrack just a couple minutes here just to explain how we sort of got here with Bell. Through various acquisitions over the past decade, let's say, they took in Crave Media. Crave Media held the Canadian rights to MTV at the time, and then they rolled that into their own version of it. MTV in Canada has had 2 incarnations, just for reference. I think within Crave Media, there were a couple teen-oriented channels, but they went off the air. They didn't last. And those were, I think, long gone before the Crave Media acquisition. And Crave Media, just for reference, in their stable was what was called the A Channel network. And most notably within the Toronto area, they held 2 channels. One was Toronto 1, that eventually evolved and was branched off and sold to Sun Media. That was the Sun Media channel Sun News channel for a brief period of time. And that's long gone. And and they owned CKVR at a point. And that became the new VR. That was the original television broadcast channel for the Toronto Raptors, actually.
And that was Barrie and stuff like that.
And that's based in Barrie. It became A Channel. And then after it was sold to Bell Media, it became CTV2. Basically, CTV2 is the remnants of the Crave Media acquisition. The other noteworthy acquisition was Astral Media. That was in 2013. I bring up Astral Media because their most noteworthy property, if memory serves me right, was Family Channel. And Family Channel, which started like in the late 80s, that was the rights holder for a lot of Disney program from the 80s onwards until Disney brought in their own, partnered with various broadcasters, I think with Course, if memory serves me right, to bring Disney branded channels into Canada. And with it, their programming. But up until that point, Disney programming was on this channel, on Family Channel. And it's been reduced since. But around the time of the acquisition in 2013, Family Channel was sold off. And I'm trying to remember to who. I forgot the name of the company that took in Family Channel eventually.
But suffice it to say that if they had been able to keep Family Channel, that probably would have helped them for Crave and for linear services on the youth and children's front, possibly, depending on how that grew.
In 2013, they were sold to a company called DHX Media, which is now known as Wild Brain Limited. And Wild Brain is known for their children's programming.
As we talked about, I
As we
think
talked about
last night, I think they did license a few things to them and stuff like that, but they were taken off Crave. So,
and then fast forward to 2017? Yes, 2017. WoW Media's involvement, as we mentioned in the interview with Jesse. WoW Media Unlimited making an agreement with Bell Media to purchase one of their Category B channels. That Category B channel was Comedy Gold. That's now been mothballed until WoW could decide what to do with it, which led to our conversation last night. In the meantime, though, the part of the deal was Bell Media took in a significant number of shares in WoW Unlimited, and that's where we are today. So that's the basic story. It's a for us that kind of like to keep up with these things. It's a fascinating story, and it was timely once again to have Jesse on because obviously he's more well versed on these matters than I think we ever were, even in the version 1 era of this podcast. But it still holds some fascination to us still. But as I said, Jesse does his research. He's done that stuff for years, well before the podcast. Oftentimes, any news that happened in Canada, he was off, and it was mentioned on something like Anime News Network. He was often the source of that. So he's done this for, I'd say, 20 years, as long as I've known. Like, as long as I could remember keeping up with anime news. He's always been on the forefront of that type of stuff. So it was a real pleasure to have him on and to give us some insight and take another angle to the Sailor Moon story on Crave. The other thing I took away from it, though, was, like I said last night, because now that interview for us was last night, since that's when we taped it. To a fault, I have this habit of trying to connect as many dots as possible when we hear a story. And you guys, I know, keep me in check from getting too carried away doing that. Jesse, I know, keeps me in check with trying to get too carried away with connecting dots. But the takeaway from the interview, from the conversation, because I don't like calling them interviews, but from our conversation with Jesse, was I think we can connect a few dots this time around.
I think there's hope for Inuyasha if Sailor Moon does well.
Back to your hopes and dreams on this one, right?
Well, it'd be nice to have Inuyasha. That would be the more logical show to put up next.
If this is going where we think it's going.
Yes. I think personally, I would want Bleach.
Mo?
I was going to say, and you actually would perfectly time with the new season, right? I mean, to promote that.
Exactly.
Merchandise and stuff, maybe re-release some things. I mean, if they're going to do this, they might as well go old school, something nostalgic, and you actually would do it. Sailor Moon does it, definitely.
I think they might be able to pull off, if they talk to Sunrise, maybe Gundam Wing or something like that, because Gundam actually did somewhat well.
So
I think up in Canada compared to US.
Oh, go ahead, Mo. Sorry.
I was going to say, so did Escaflowne. Escaflowne would be good too.
Well, as I said, now we're dreaming in Technicolor. We could be
dreaming in Technicolor. I go Seed over Wing, actually.
Sorry?
I go Seed over Wing. I go Seed before Wing.
Okay.
But yeah, Seed and Wing are the two we know were on TV and did their best, of course.
I think the key thing, I think there's going to be some, just to go back a little bit, I think the two key criterias will be, play nostalgia. I'm not going to say there's a number of criteria, so I'll strike that part out. But I think criteria here will be the nostalgia play. Sailor Moon obviously brought a lot of that out from some various Canadian personalities. The other thing will be anime for those who really aren't into anime. I think that'll be a key criteria. Sailor Moon gets into that easily.
And a wide age range and stuff like that,
That
which,
too,
as we
I
said,
suppose.
that it falls into.
And
Are they
but
still airing Dragon Ball Z by any chance?
what do we know about that?
Like it's
I think
Funimation.
no. They're
Mhm.
airing Dragon Ball Super in the United States
Okay.
on Adult Swim / Cartoon Network.
Yeah, that was the one I was thinking you could still do, is like maybe Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball Super or something like that, to see if they want to do that, because that's one that could hit across age range and demographics
Okay, and I guess this
and
comes down
nostalgia.
to another criteria for me.
You can go to Funimation and watch it now.
That's the key one.
And that's the other thing too. Yeah, so it's kind of
And this is vis-a-vis Canada for me. Is there a viable alternative to watching these shows in Canada at the moment? Sailor Moon
the time
wasn't
is yes.
really it. Tubi to some degree has it, but Tubi's a very niche service that not many would know about. So, like, certainly not on the same level of Crunchyroll, Funimation, and even then, that's still fairly nichey. That's a word. So, is there a almost mainstream alternative to finding a show? Dragon Ball, where is that? It's on Funimation. It's getting there. Funimation, right? Yeah, it's getting there, but it's not wide. It's not wide enough. It's this almost the center of the universe for anime fans, but what about non fans, casual fans?
For Dragon Ball?
Yes,
It's
I mean that's what Sailor Moon did.
Yeah, Dragon Ball's in the same league.
Dragon Ball's in the same
120%.
league. Dragon Ball's in the same league, but there's a place to watch it if someone's really searching for it. And
but that's the thing, is you want that blue ocean, right? Crave would be more of a blue ocean than Funimation Crunchyroll.
Yeah, and
so that's what I'm looking at too.
What helped for Sailor Moon in this case is there isn't really an alternative in Canada. Well, Tubi aside,
dub.
Especially for that English dub.
But there may be people, right, as we know, that may not know they want that, right? And then they just say, hey, it's recommending me this, or hey, I saw that on the front page and I haven't thought about it in years or something like that. And
remember, Steve Jobs was famous for, in his marketing, he wasn't much for focus groups. He would always say, consumers would know what they want when we put it in front of them.
I do remember that. That was Steve Jobs.
And by the way, that's also, I think, a line from Akio Morita, one of the key founders or co-founders of Sony, which we found out in Pure Invention, right, James?
Correct. And yeah, that was a part of that chapter we were reading.
Yeah, and Steve Jobs really looked up to him for reference. So that's my criteria. So I think it's the second one that I think is key. Anime for people who aren't into anime. That's what Sailor Moon is. Dragon Ball is it. What else? And I guess we have to go back into the 90s to see that. Right? Maybe to some degree we can get away with that with if they can get Akira.
And I guess we did talk about it before with Show Me and stuff like that. We talked about Pokemon. But the reason Pokemon wouldn't be one you would go after is Pokemon is everywhere. It is on all the mainstream channels. It's been there and seen that. You know what I mean? It's not like
Netflix,
it's on. Yeah, it's on Netflix.
And you can go to Pokemon's official website to watch pretty much all of the movies and seasons as well.
Mm-hmm.
So unlike Dragon Ball, stuff like that, it's pretty much scorched earth. Everywhere.
Yeah. So Inuyasha could be that, I suppose. Anything that from that YTV era that you can't easily find right now. Maybe
all the hack stuff maybe
could, but that's maybe a little bit of a stretch right now.
Do we really need to? Do they really need to inflict .hack sign upon the world?
Who knows?
I guess if we're going to inflict some nostalgia.
I mean, I know your template, Kevin, is more, okay, what's on Hulu that we can't see in Canada at the moment? Basically, this is a Viz play.
That would be the bigger draw. The bigger draw would be to grab the things that are not accessible to us. So like Bleach, like Naruto and Naruto Shippuden.
Naruto is Naruto is out there, but not all of it. And I know that was a big part of the conversation we had last night. Right?
But
now that's an evolving story, and I get the feeling I'd like to think this isn't the end of it yet. Be great. And we can hear more about it.
Ironically, Mike, I was thinking about, just to finish off, what you said about things from YTV that people might remember that might be funny to throw on there. And I just thought about it. Samurai Pizza Cats. That'd be funny. And of course, it's tech released and stuff like that. Sub and dub.
Crunchyroll, though?
And it is on Crunchyroll, I believe. And I believe the dub version is on there, too. But that would be a fun one that I'm sure all ages would get a kick out of if they saw it.
It has to be, a degree of family friendliness would help.
But you would have had to be looking for it and stuff like that. But that was on, like, I think, The Zone and stuff like that. So it hit that market.
Yeah. Well, who knows? There's a dare to dream. Nothing wrong with dreaming just a little bit.
Well, that would be a pie in the sky one. But I could see that one working in the right environment.
But I think to fans out there, and this is another takeaway, I think, that came out in that interview to us. Did I say interview again? Take a shot. That conversation again is there are some people on the inside who want this too. Give them a bone. If you have Crave, once again, and this is kind of paraphrasing Jesse one more time, put Sailor Moon on a loop, you can leave the room. Just make sure.
I've been streaming it nonstop, right?
Sorry?
I've been streaming it nonstop on all my devices.
So, yeah, pad the stats a little bit, because that's how they'll see it. And the people on the inside will have what they need to work with.
So, Mo, since we can move the conversation forward, is that how we're getting the anime back into the theaters? You've just been taking seats for the anime that has barely come over, like Akira 4K?
Yeah.
Every showing?
Yeah. So I've been doing my part to bring anime back to Canada.
Brilliant segue! We want to. Like, you mentioned this to us last weekend, Mo. You've gone to the movie theaters a couple times.
Yeah, I'm
way to risk your life, by the way.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. I really shouldn't be risking my life like that. I mean, Corona and whatnot. I mean, look, if the president of the United States can get this, anyone can get this.
Yes, and just for reference to the listeners, we taped our conversation with Jesse last night just hours before the announcement for President Trump came in. And literally within a half an hour after we were done, my phone exploded. And I think the first notification I got about that was from NHK World, actually. Funny enough. Sorry, go ahead, Mo.
Yeah. So, I mean, luckily, people are hearing the advice of public health officials and not going to movies. So that leaves movies for me to watch, which means no one's in the theaters, and it's just me. It's pretty cool.
So how many people were watching Akira in 4K? Tell us.
So I believe it was a grand total of 2 people in the entire all of Canada.
And you represent half of
only it. One person in the theater being you, and you got to live like a king.
Oh man! So me and a buddy of mine went to go see it last Saturday. We saw it at Corny Park in Mississauga, and when we got to the theater, both of the theater managers were there, and one of the employees was there to rip the tickets, and they were so happy we were there. Just I mean, I didn't shake anyone's hands or anything because coronavirus, but they're all like, "Oh man, we're so glad you came out. Have a good time." And then we got in the theater, and it was just the 2 of us, and we. So my buddy had never seen Akira before. It was his first time going. Yeah. First time 4K in theaters. It's amazing.
So how did the 2020 Tokyo Olympics tournament tell
Oh
us?
God, I knew you'd make that reference.
Yo, I will say this: he didn't notice it, but then I noticed it, and then I pointed it, and he noticed it, and he was freaking out. He was like, "How do they know this? This movie's from the '80s. How do they figure this out?"
That's great.
It's kind of like Back to the Future predicting the Cubs World Series win.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Remember that one? They got eliminated earlier today.
Oh man, it's funny. I haven't seen Akira in a while, so I kind of forgotten the finer points of the movie, specifically the tax reform. I didn't really know this, but a large portion of the movie is about tax reform. Kind of like episode 1 for Star Wars. Apparently, taxes are really big in sci-fi cultures, but yeah, there's a huge thing there about tax reform and how Neo Tokyo is going to shit because of taxes.
Oh boy.
There's one scene in particular. I know everyone's seen this, already remembers, but it's the new government trying to figure out this whole tax nonsense and blaming it on the former administration, saying how they fucked shit up, and now we got to fix it. And all my mind thinking, man, that's Trump. Trump fucked shit up, and now they got to fix it.
Yeah. But worthwhile. Like seriously, you were the only two in the theater at all the way?
I think we were only 2 in the entire multiplex, let alone in that one screening of Akira.
So that's why they were so happy to see you, probably.
I felt bad because I didn't buy any popcorn or drinks or anything. I had a mask on the entire time. I just went in, went out. And on top of all this, because I don't want to say this, but I feel like I should. They had this promotion on where it was half price, half the scene points to watch a movie that I would normally watch a movie. So we got 2 tickets for free because of scene points.
Oh yes, yeah.
I heard about that.
The frequent program that Cineplex offers through. Well, Scotiabank, I know has their fingerprints on that too.
Mohamed,
it's an independent program, huh?
Mohamed, is that on Tuesdays or is that just all the time right now? Because they're that desperate.
I believe it's until like the 8th of October. But if you have scene points, normally it'd be like $1,000 for a ticket, half that price, half the scene points to watch a movie.
I actually have 1,000 scene points.
You should do it, man. Take a buddy. Go watch Lupin's in like a week or so. You can watch that.
That's next on the agenda, isn't it?
Wait, Lupin's going in theaters here?
Yep,
it is. So if you go, Kevin, to the events page under anime, there was nothing. And then Akira showed up in 4K, as Mo alluded to it. So I'm guessing, did you get to see the experience? Was it worth all 4Ks? Should we get it in December when it comes out?
Yes. 1,000 times yes. I have Akira on DVD somewhere, and
I have the steelbook. I have an old steelbook, which is
so
all
good.
So my Blu-ray earlier this year.
So they said that it's December 22nd. It might be a little earlier for the Akira limited edition 4K Blu-ray release from Funimation, and I guess they said has a booklet, has your Blu-ray, and has your 4K Blu-ray, and I think that is Funimation's first 4K release, actually.
Interesting. Is it the dub that came out with the Pioneer version?
I think it's the same one way they did the Blu-ray when they licensed it before and stuff like that. So I think it's just the Geneon Pioneer dub and stuff like that.
Okay, so Johnny Young Bosch plays Kaneda.
I thought they did re-record it though, and that just both of them were there.
Oh, even the streamlined dub from way back?
Yes.
Oh, it would be hilarious if they got the streamlined dub.
They never would have got that. I think only Discotech tries to dig out everything and stuff like that.
It would be hard to find that. But Johnny Young Bosch, who appeared at Fan Expo many years ago, but he would play Kaneda in that dub. And I know he loved getting that role. He was so excited to get that role.
But thinking about, since we talked about dub and sub, was that in sub or dub? Because it doesn't actually tell you if there's a dub or sub version on the website for Cineplex.
I think there might be a dub somewhere, but it was sub. We saw a sub version of it. It's funny because going into it, I mean, I don't really know how to explain Akira because the trailers and whatnot are a bit misleading, so it's hard to explain it all. But I was basically like, that dude right there, that's Tetsuo. Think of him as Naruto, and think of Kanata as Sasuke.
Just give the comparisons, right?
That's it. That's their entire
Just something they can relate to.
Yeah. And as you see Tetsuo right there, he's having the nine-tail spirit put inside of him, and that's how he becomes so powerful. And Kanata, being Kanata, doesn't believe in his power, so he's like treating him badly and whatnot. And the entire time, my buddy's like, "Oh yeah, man, that totally makes sense. I totally got that."
Oh boy!
It's like you're taking Ott's mentality and explaining a movie from the '80s and cyberpunk. Brilliant.
Just as an addendum, yes, the Funimation release does have both dubs.
Oh, it did have both dubs?
Wait,
it's weird because usually they don't get. That's odd. I guess I forgot because it's been so long since I watched the Blu-ray.
So Cam Clark. I think his name was Cam Clark. He played Kaneda in the Streamline dub.
And until we upgrade our equipment or something like that, or get a PS5, I think the 4K Blu-rays are not going to be for us.
Mm-hmm. Well, Cam Clark, just for reference on Cam Clark, he's also known as... Oh, yeah, he played Leonardo in the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated series in the 80s. Mm-hmm. That's Cam Clark.
Yeah, he did do some cartoons and stuff like that in the 80s and that. But actually, the last thing we'll say is that, yeah, if you do want to, the other anime event that Simplex has is Lupin the First, which is the first CG Lupin. The third movie is also going to come to Canada, not just to the States. They said mid-October. I think it's like October 18th and October 21st for some of the theaters across Canada, and it's going to be dubbed or subbed. And you just gotta go to their website to figure their seating plan and get your seats.
That's how it works.
Yeah, and that one is...
Well, it kind of comes back to what Mohamed has said about going out to the theater. You know, you pick your seat, sit down. You're not going anywhere. Mask on.
I feel like if the rules were that, where it was more organized, more like that, where it's like you come in, you sit down, you follow these lines, and you sit down in your spot, and you never leave. And if it was like that, I'd be down to saying people, "Hey, go watch movies and shit." But dude, it's not. People are not going to do what, I don't know. Just don't go see a movie, guys.
Yeah, like I was debating, thinking maybe I will go and see Lupin the First, but I bet you by the time I order a ticket, it won't even be available because they will shut down the movie theaters. That's my gut feeling. If we're talking mid-October.
Isn't it Thanksgiving on Monday?
No, it's not. It's in 2 Mondays. Remember, second Monday of October.
Oh, yeah, Canadian Thanksgiving.
So it'd be in 3 weeks. But yeah, I don't think theaters are going to be open, my gut instinct.
Well, we played in stage 2 by Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you mentioned this to me personally, Mo. The over/under on as to whether or not we'll be in a red zone. Or stage 2, or whatever the term will be.
We're still in stages, Mike. It's only Quebec that decided we're just going to redo our system, and they went to a color-coded system. So just it's red, orange, and yellow for Quebec.
Yeah.
When did we go to a color system?
No, that was only Quebec. Quebec changed their entire system, and they're now on a color system.
Why?
Because they can.
Maybe they feel they can better communicate with the people because they've had their complaints too, right? So,
yeah, just for reference, and I guess we're gonna let's segue a little bit. Over under would be for Thanksgiving as to whether or not we'd be rolled back and go back to starting to lock down here in Ontario. What was the number today? It
was just over 700, but in Quebec they were over 1,000.
Mm-hmm. They think that's in terms of new cases uncovered through the tests here. Mm-hmm. As we've mentioned in the past couple weeks, there has been steady upticks in number of cases here in Ontario. Probably through much of the rest, a good chunk of the world. The belief is we're now in a second wave here in Ontario. It culminated this week when we got over 700. Today we got to 732. the belief is it's an inevitability that we will get over 1,000 at some point per day.
Yeah, they were saying that in October.
So we think there'll be, or there's the belief, and I think the encouragement to roll back a little bit in terms of social bubbles, and as we said in the past. So just try to restrict movement for people's health and safety. Now, as I said, when we talked to Angela a couple weeks ago, I revealed working in a casino, and I know that some casinos in Ontario were allowed to reopen earlier this week, but they're only allowed at most 50 people at a time. And only the slot machines in those places are allowed to open. So if you want to play your blackjack or baccarat, not right now. I think players have to sign up online to get in. So you have to. So it's 50 maximum, 50 players maximum, and you have to reserve online and hope that there's an open spot. So that's where we are here in this province, and looks like we're taking a bit of a step back, or maybe this is just the natural progression. A second wave was expected, but this is where we are.
And with a lot of these things, as we've seen with Spanish flu and other things, the second wave usually can be bigger and stuff like that, and more deadly if you aren't prepared for it. So that's why people are ratcheting up the language again to get everyone prepared and not be complacent again.
A couple of things caught my attention about that. Yes, the sheer numbers are higher, but the testing rates are higher. I think it's always read into it a little more. I think as the numbers start to uptick a little bit, or as they were steady in their valley over the summer, a lot of the people who came down with it were younger. I think under the age of 40, I think was the line. And people who are younger can generally survive a little bit more. But I think as the numbers have gotten up again, people want to say, look at the demographic this time around. And I think a good chunk are going back over 40. So once again, we start to get concerned because COVID tends to strike the older demographic a little harder.
And they worry obviously about hospitalization and is our medical side coping?
Yes, and of course, and long-term care facilities. So that's where we are. And it's an ongoing story, obviously, for the world, and we'll see where we stand. Although, this is like, I don't know how many episodes we've done in the COVID series. We've done quite a few. I think we've done more than a dozen recordings for the COVID series already. We'll double check that. Anyway,
I didn't realize we had renamed yet again there, Mike.
What?
The COVID series.
Well, the pandemic series of episodes, right? Everything we've done since March 11th.
The pandemic era.
Well,
but
never ended.
To get back on the lighter note, even though probably it won't show up, it's like Lupin the Third. I was actually surprised that these things are still coming out in the States, and so I was like, oh, it actually is possibly going to come to Canada, but probably not because of COVID. But that one was an interesting one because G-Kids is the one releasing Lupin the First, not Discotheque or TMS. TMS decided to choose G-Kids this time to get, I guess, a wider release and stuff like that. But they are, if you do watch dub, they're using the original dub cast and stuff like that of Richard Epker and Tony Oliver and stuff like that as Lupin.
Yeah,
so
there's a name. Well,
okay. So it'll be a fun one, and hopefully they can get some more fans from that, and like Discotheque hopes, I'm sure, as well as that G-Kids can push that, and then some of those people that might be seeing Lupin for the first time might want to check out the other Lupin specials, films, or series that they sell as well. So it might rise their sales as well, which hopefully...
Curiosity, yeah. Well, it's Lupin's historic title, but it doesn't have the broad appeal of something like a Sailor Moon, but it has, as in for non-anime fans, but within the fandom, the older fandom, Lupin still has it.
But Discotek has definitely built it because Genion just couldn't get the numbers and stuff like that. Funimation tried some specials and it didn't do as well for them, but Discotek has chugged along and I guess has managed to grow a fan base for that series Lupin that they can still license stuff from it, which is nice.
Well, Discotek just works differently in many respects to me.
And they can probably maybe take those lower numbers too, right? So
yeah, I think so. Okay, so let's go down the line a little bit since we're on the topic of movies. So word came down of agreements to do another set of movie adaptations, but more based on video games. A couple weeks ago, there was I'm trying to just look it up now. A couple weeks ago, well, late September.
So I believe I was looking it up now just to help you out, Mike. It was Sega, and then it was 1212 Entertainment and Wild Sheep Content are working together to bring, I guess, a new adaptation of Yakuza to the big screen, I guess, from the Western Hollywood type side.
Mm-hmm. That's one, and we'll get to we can get to Yakuza a little bit in a bit.
Is that the one you're thinking?
Well, Yakuza is obviously on the mind. The other one that's sort of on the mind is Super Mario Brothers. That word came down on that.
And that one has been going on for a while, I know, too. And then they've had more updates, obviously, since the management meeting in September on that one. And that one, as I think you were searching for, that was between Nintendo and Universal. And
Okay.
Illumination is the one that's doing the movie. It's going to be an animated movie, not a live action like the 1993 disaster.
Oh, it's interesting because I wonder how much John Leguizamo hangs his hat on that movie. Sometimes there's that phrase. Sometimes a movie is so bad it's good. Well, obviously for different reasons.
I think Super Mario Brothers qualifies as one of those movies.
Yeah, Showgirls too.
I think what would have been interesting too is if they had gotten those things of the behind the scenes, because they said both the main actors, and that was Bob Hoskins involved, were like at each other's throat. They had to keep them away from each other, and they were drunk on set. It's like that's when you know your movie's like probably not going to work out that well.
Well, work out in that sense, but then it may be awesome in another sense. One of the takeaways, and this kind of came out a few times. I was listening to the Anime Addicts podcast a couple weeks ago, episode 542, just for reference. Hey guys, what's up? And they brought up the notion that, well, they brought up the part that Shigeru Miyamoto would be involved in this production.
And that's one of his big things they keep on talking about. That's one of his big projects because he's not doing as much in the game development side and stuff like that, even though he oversees things and stuff like that. But this is like one of his babies, I think, that he's working on now.
Yeah, and they wondered the merit of having the original creative forces involved with this. And I guess that's where I am at it. That's the part I'm wondering about a little bit more. Like, we've seen this string. Like, we know that adaptations of things like manga, anime, video games, it can be hit and miss, more often a miss. And what is it? A dumpster fire in a in a trash can or something like that. I forgot the metaphor.
I believe it's called a shit show.
Shit show and a dumpster fire.
If you guys are looking for an example of shit show,
it was basically, I think it was Jake Tapper's rant after the debate a couple days ago.
Bingo, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Okay, but we're seeing this line now where how do I put this? We're seeing the original creative forces behind a title getting more involved in adaptations. When that line came out in the Anime Addicts podcast, I was thinking about creator of Fruits Basket getting more involved in the latest and the recent anime adaptation of that because of how she butted heads with the director of the other anime adaptation.
Yeah, I guess those two actually are similar in a way, that and then Super Mario Brothers, because they had previous adaptations
and that
the
was
creators
that.
weren't as much involved in, and now it's like after they were gun shy after that, when they come back, they're more involved and stuff like that, and the people they're involved with are kind of like looking up to them, and they want to be like, oh, we want to work with you and stuff like that. You know, I mean, not at arm's length, but as co-creators and stuff like that, like Illumination's Chris Meledandri, I believe his name is working side by side with Miyamoto to make the dream happen for this Mario movie in 2022 and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like they're gunning for success and stuff like that. And
Well,
he obviously is known from the Minions movies and the Despicable Me movie.
okay. All right, let's juxtapose that to another recent Nintendo adaptation. That's Detective Pikachu. Did anyone remember the involvement of any of the original creative forces with that movie?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't believe so or anything like that.
All right, well, let's go down the line a little bit, because
But I'm
the
sure
other
like Nintendo was involved to a degree and stuff like that. But as in terms of personnel, I'm not sure which people in the Pokemon company would have been involved and how much.
Okay. Well, let's go down the line a little bit, because yes, now we can come back to Yakuza. Yakuza was announced to be getting a Hollywood adaptation. When was it? Earlier this week, or was it last week?
Yeah, it was during just around the Tokyo Game Shows. Yeah, so I thought it was last week because Tokyo Game Show was going on. But just to tie up that bow on Nintendo, they had remember they were everywhere in the 80s with licensing out and stuff like that, especially from Nintendo of America, but they kind of pulled back. But over the last many number of years, they have been going full force of taking all those IP and characters, the Zeldas, the Marios and stuff like that, and throwing it out there on all sorts of different products. And even, as we said, working with Universal also on the theme park angle, because they have finished the theme park for the Super Nintendo Land, or whatever they're calling it, Super Nintendo World, at Osaka. And that's all done, and hopefully it'll launch at some point, because they wanted to release it with the Tokyo Olympics when all the international visitors were coming, and they, I think, are working. I can't remember if it's Florida or Hollywood, but there's going to be a Nintendo themed thing there as well.
I was about to say, how much did Nintendo pay for that to get Shinzo Abe to dress up as Mario at the Olympics a couple of years?
I remember we had talked about, and you can't buy that type of marketing and stuff like that.
Nintendo got no money out of that, but they got the publicity.
Yeah, as we read again in Pure Invention, sometimes your best marketing stuff is things you don't pay for. It just happens on chance, and then you just run with it.
Right. Well, we'll get back to... Actually, we can tie that in a bit later. Going back to Yakuza, since that was also announced last week.
And that was the Western adaptation we were talking about earlier and stuff like that. And so we'll see how that plays out, because there's been many adaptations, right, that they announced them and they never pan out as much. But it sounds like they're moving along and stuff like that with it, because they have producers and stuff like that. Hopefully they get a writer. They said they're currently looking for script writers, and there's no further information. So it's still in the early stages, it looks like.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. This another Sega property. This is Yakuza's Sega's number 2 property, and the number 1 property had its adaptation, Sonic the Hedgehog. It comes on the heels of that, and its success. It did rather well.
Yep, to get another movie out of it. So that's pretty good for Sonic and stuff like that. But that was an interesting one as we think about, because remember the design,
yes,
stuff like that.
Well, now that we're on this topic, does anyone remember how much of the original creative forces were involved with that movie?
No, Naka and stuff like that. Yuji Naka, the original creator Sonic, like they weren't involved. A lot of them now. Yuji Naka is no longer with Sega and stuff like that, but a lot of the people were not involved. And so when everyone saw that first design, they're just like, "What the heck is going on with Sonic?" And so they got enough blowback that they had to go back to the drawing board. And I forget, it was one of the, because Sonic has a lot of fans that kind of worked on fan games and stuff like that, and then started working with Sega professionally. That's how we got things like Sonic Mania, right? So I think one of the people that might have worked on Sonic Mania, I forget who it was in the community, but he was a professional and he helped to redesign that new look that showed up in the final film, and everyone's like, okay, this looks more like Sonic.
Well, I haven't seen it, and I'm not familiar with Sonic all that much, I'll be honest. But it
does have Jim Carrey as Dr. Eggman, or I guess Jim Carrey or Joe Biden as Dr. Eggman.
Oh,
The best part of the movie was Jim Carrey.
Very funny, very funny. I get that reference too.
But it's kind of funny because Jim Carrey, just as an aside, I feel like I hadn't seen him in movies for the longest time, because remember, he kind of became reclusive, he did art and all these other things, but he didn't really do any movies for the longest time, it felt like, and now he's just kind of back with a vengeance.
Mm-hmm. Potentially playing Joe Biden.
Well, definitely. He's doing it this Saturday, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
on Saturday Night Live.
Okay, so going back to Yakuza for a second here, I think the key name that also came out of, I read a report that Toshihiro Nagoshi, the creator, he had to greenlight it. He was steadfast unless he knew it would be good, and that also makes it sound like Nagoshi will have a good chunk of input on this live action, coming back to the whole original creative forces argument.
That's what I wonder about, because sometimes, yes, the creator has to greenlight. Yes, they are given like either a producer or an exclusive producer role, but it doesn't always guarantee that they're going to be as hands-on. You know what I mean? So it's hard to say. Time will tell on that one. And
time will tell. But as I said, Nagoshi seems to be really going to try and keep up with this.
Mm-hmm. So hopefully, I think it is ripe for a movie making for Yakuza and stuff like that. So I think it should turn out all right and stuff like that.
Well, obviously it'll come down to, what parts of the story they will want to use.
And the thing is, they have a lot to work off of compared to, say, the first live action movie that was made of this. And that one, it was called Like a Dragon Prologue. And so they called it Yakuza Like a Dragon is what I think they called it when Media Blasters brought it out on DVD. And that was actually directed by Takeshi Miike.
Mm-hmm.
So that one had a big Japanese director and stuff like that, and it loosely followed the events of the first game. But I thought it was it was a good representation of Yakuza, and it was a good Takeshi Miike film and stuff like that. It was his kind of thing to do.
Okay, and as I said, Nagoshi will want to stay on top of this, or he stated he will stay on top of this, if nothing else. So we'll see how it goes. That's all you can really say.
Yeah, well, sometimes, though, they'll see something and they'll be like, oh, this is great and stuff like that. And others may not feel that way, because remember, Mike, I told you about, Ghost in the Shell, the Western movie of that and stuff like that. And actually, the Japanese creators and creative force behind Ghost in the Shell thought the movie was all right. And remember, everyone in the West, all we were talking about was they've whitewashed this whole movie and stuff like that of Ghost in the Shell with Scarlett Johansson and with all that. And they were talking on the Japanese side about, oh, it's this cyberpunk metropolitan thing that is like international. Like it wasn't that they had to be Japanese or whatever, but they had a look of all the culture and stuff like that mixed together.
Well,
they whitewashed Makoto at the very end of the film. Spoiler alert.
But yes, I would say on the main lead, they should have got someone else and stuff like that.
In terms of race, it was fine up until the very end. I was okay with the major not needing to be Japanese. But with what happened at the end of the film, then that was when it was whitewashed.
Is it on Netflix?
Just to be clear, I had not watched it, but I remember there was rumblings on that one from both guys.
So what Kevin's alluding to is that there's a scene halfway through the movie where you find out Major is actually like the reincarnation of like an actual Japanese person type of situation. So mad disrespectful that like a dead Japanese person is reincarnated into a white lady's android body type situation. But it makes no sense. It makes no points. It doesn't make the movie any less than the movie is. People are whining over nothing.
But I guess you can kind of see it because for Ghost in the Shell and for Makoto, one of the key things we always hear about is her ghost being put into this cybernetic body and stuff like that. But yeah, probably the way they did it probably wasn't the best from what I'm hearing from you guys.
Mm-hmm. Do we want to say something about Battle Angel Alita before we end this?
It's great.
We talked about it last year, but
that will be the best adaptation of an Japanese animated property for probably the next 30 years. That is my bold prediction.
I hate to agree with Kevin on this, but I think he might be right.
I would say, yeah, that is probably clear, and it definitely helped that James Cameron was a fan of Battle Angel Alita, and he waited forever to kind of get that out the door, and all of them just worked hard to make that happen.
It felt anticlimactic when it did come out, but
I
enjoyed it.
Love the movie.
I mean, going back to it, I did enjoy it.
It's probably better it worked out the way it did than, say, for example, the Dragon Ball movie.
Well, that's true too.
Dude,
okay, yeah, it could come down to maybe a creator taking the company line. So let's see if Nagoshi eventually goes that route. We'll find out as time goes, I suppose.
I need Kazuma to do all the mundane things you can do with him, like in the video games.
True.
I need him to play baseball. I need him to take care of little babies. I need him to do wacky contests, or else it won't be the true Yakuza experience.
Well, it's a lot to pack into what could be likely a 2-hour thing. I mean, once again, it'll come down to what they pick and choose. Okay. Oh, and going back to like tie this all into pure invention for a second, James. Fans become so aware of this. How much creative license can you get away with when they make an attempt towards mainstream? I mean, that's sort of where I'm coming to with as we continue to read Pure Invention, the two of us. And for reference, James, what page are you on?
I am actually at the same point I told you last time, which is I am at chapter 7, A New Anime Century.
Okay. So, well, I'm one chapter behind. I'm on chapter 6. I'm at the beginning of chapter 6, Empire of the Schoolgirls.
So actually, I'll give you, because they have little quotes before each chapter. And so I'll read the two little opposing quotes and stuff like that. And so at the top it says otaku, and then it says, people who are interested in a particular genre or subject are extraordinarily knowledgeable about it and are lacking in social common sense. And that's from Kojin, the Japanese Dictionary 6th edition, 2008. The next quote below it is, the vast majority of Japanese animation is made by humans who can't stand looking at other humans. And who is that quoted by but a very noble old man called Hayao Miyazaki, 2014.
Oh boy.
At least that isn't bad. You should see chapter 8 about gaming, these two quotes, and compare them. The first one is, I think video games are evil. And who do you think said that? But Yoshiyuki Tomio, creator of Gundam. And then the quote below is, video games are bad for you, ? That's what they said about rock and roll. And who said that but Shigeru Miyamoto? Compare those two.
As I said, James and I highly recommend.
For reference, Tomio was right. Just want to let you know.
Now that you had me thinking about the quotes, chapter 6, Empire of the Schoolgirls, Kitty goes global, because the chapter before was about Hello Kitty. You learn much more about a country when things fall apart. When the tide recedes, you get to see all the stuff it leaves behind. Timothy Genther, U.S. Secretary of the Treasury, on Japan in 1990. This was just before the as the bubble.
Oh, and then the next one below, all the emotes.
All those emoji.
Could you translate that for me, Mike? Because I'm still
smiley face, Japanese flag, arrow saying soon, torn money,
flying money flying away,
screaming cat, poop, question mark. I don't know how to translate that. I'm old. Okay.
I'm old too, so I was confused. I understood the first one, but not the New Age one.
Yeah. So, well, as I said, it's a big recommendation. I guess we'll reflect more on this as we finish it, James. James and I will do that anyway. And as I said, Mo, Kevin, everyone listening, recommended reading. Especially easy for anybody who actually enjoys listening to this show. Both of you. Okay, personal level. Going back for a couple seconds before we end off tonight. Yes, I did finish Yakuza. I finished Yakuza Kiwami last week. And now I'm taking a break because I got to catch up on other stuff. I got to finish said Pure Invention. I got to finish said Card Captor Sakura Clear Card. I got to post some stuff on eBay. I'm sorry, Kevin.
Oh, no need to apologize.
Yeah. I mean, we still have to talk about, from the lesson a couple of weeks ago. I still have yet to really do it. It's just, it's one of those weeks, I suppose.
Well,
but I know. I mean, yes, no hurry yet, but yes, no hurry in one sense, but yes, Christmas is coming too. And, you might have a captive audience if people are locked up again.
Yep.
So,
what's the under-over on there being stage 3 by Christmas?
Going back to stage 3?
Yeah.
Assuming we're taken away from it?
Yep.
Ooh. Over. I think because I think if we pull back, we won't find ourselves. If we pull away down to stage 2 or stage 1 here in Ontario, I will be personally surprised if we get back to stage 3 before the new year.
I also agree with that. I feel like once we go down, we're not going to back out.
Not quickly.
2020 is over, guys. 2021, we'll see what happens.
2020 ended back in mid-March around around the March 11th episode. Jesus Christ.
I don't know. I've dealt with it okay.
Well, we most of us have, I think. And yeah, we've all faced certain hardships. So and we can only speak for ourselves. I mean, I'm glad you guys are still around. I'm happy that we were able to start this pandemic series. I forgot exactly how many recordings. I'll check the recording. Go talk for a second. I'll check how many recordings for.
I'll have to say, if you're an introvert, man, is this a great time for you, assuming you still have a job.
I was going to say, you had to have money to actually keep up with your passions because people usually want money in return. Or your personal information.
What your hobbies are, really. Like, hey, there's so much free content on the internet.
Yeah, there is.
And
actually, thinking about it, are you looking
like me and have like 500 volumes of manga that he hasn't read yet?
Oh, that's awesome too.
Think of how many trees were chopped down for that manga, Kevin. How many rainforests you destroyed?
And maybe like one.
Yeah, I say that as I'm holding my copy of Pure Invention. Way to go, James.
Don't worry, I did it on a spite when I killed all those rainforests.
For reference, this is now the 16th recording in the pandemic era, or in the pandemic series. Oh God!
So sweet 16
era. Did I say era? Oh my goodness!
And you don't have to. You don't have to justify why you don't want to go outside because you can't go outside anyway.
Dude, it's so nice
half the time. Or if you're getting married, you don't have to invite those people you don't like because now you have a good.
Okay, on that topic, James, how's Matt?
He's doing quite well, and we had well below what we needed. I think we were below 35 people, so up to 35 max, and we were outdoors and stuff like that. But there were some weird people in masks because it was like a community center sort of thing. that were on a hill watching us, but we were also in masks, so maybe they thought we were odd too. In our own social bubbles, staying away from each other.
Yeah. Oh, I'm trying to remember Matt's appearance on our show from back then.
I can't remember exactly. Oh boy, it's been so long.
It's there. It's there. It's just I have to look. I have to make sure exactly where it is. But congratulations to him. I saw the picture earlier on Facebook, a picture from the wedding. So sounds like he's doing okay. Jokingly, every time we talk weddings, there are two quotes that often come to mind from various sitcoms. One was from John Larroquette during the John Larroquette show, and he just said, and I forgot the context. Wife rhymes with life, but mean opposite things. The second one is even more of a zinger. It's Al Bundy in one episode of Married with Children when he and Peg were looking through a video store trying to pick a movie to watch. And he picked up a copy of 4 Weddings and a Funeral and then exclaimed, 4 weddings and a funeral? Isn't that 5 of the same thing? So, I thought it was a good line.
It was a good line. That show was really good.
That was a good show. But who knows? Well, as I said, I got stuff to catch up on. So I don't know. What's on your queues before we end off this week?
I'm rewatching Seed. I literally have the DVD in front of me.
Wow, you're watching Seed again. Damn.
Oh,
I was doing what Kevin suggested. I was Marie Kondoing my room. I found out that I have Prince of Tennis for some reason, and I have the box set of Gundam Seed, the Anime Legends version. You guys remember Anime Legends?
Yeah, I remember those. Those were the Bandai label.
I feel like those would still have value since they have the old dub and stuff like that, and they are going to provide that on, I think, the special edition of the Right Stuff ones, but not on the regular one because they're the remastered ones. So, like, it was like they redid animation, all this other stuff, so they had to redub it.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
I'm guessing those old ones might still have value, I guess.
I have the old Comic Den copies of it sitting
like
here.
The singles?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, I bought it as the store closed down all those years ago.
But so was it just the first season of Seed and not Destiny, or was it both?
I got Destiny too. I got both.
They'll put out Destiny eventually, but this release is just Seed. Oh, are you talking
about
Mohamed?
I was talking to Mo if he had Seed and Destiny, or he just had Seed when he was cleaning up.
Just Seed. They broke it up into 2 parts. So I just got the first and second part of Seed. So just Seed.
Yes, Seed Destiny. The better way to go with that is the movie releases. The movie compilations are the better way to experience Seed Destiny because they cleaned up a lot of the inconsistencies in the plot and storyline.
Okay. No, I figured for you, Kevin, what was the show you were finishing up last time we talked?
I'm now 17 chapters away from finishing Prison School.
Cool, yeah.
I thought Kevin was going to start Higurashi since that started this week, but we'll be a week behind because we are watching free on Funimation.
If Higurashi does not bring me back to watching anime streaming as it comes out, nothing will.
I think they said it basically looks like, other than pacing and animation, it's going to be the same Higurashi we remembered, and that at the ending they used the same opening as the original, I believe.
Oh yes, Eiko Shimamiya. Oh man, I miss her. I miss her singing.
But James. I think I'm going to be watching that next week, because the fall season's coming up, so that'll be great to see some things. I'm definitely going to watch Golden Kamuy season 3. So that's coming this fall, and I think that's
in my Crunchyroll queue, actually.
Yeah, and that's next week. It's kind of, but that one's weird for the anime because they skip certain chapters and stuff like that. because if you're keeping up with the Viz release and it's coming up close to the Japanese because they have 17 volumes out already, there are some chapters they skip in the anime and stuff like that, and some that were animated, but they were done like as a release with the manga. You know how sometimes they'll release some anime episodes with a manga and stuff like that? They did that with Golden Kamuy, but they've never been licensed by Funimation Crunchyroll since that's a title that's tied to both of them still.
And you still got Pure Invention to finish up as well.
Yeah, and then I might check down again. I was looking, Retro Crush is still adding stuff, and I saw today they added to their catalog, and it's a title Sentai had, but Sentai, it looks like the license ran out for it. It is from the creator of Kino's
Journey?
Yeah, Kino's Journey. He had another light novel that was called, it was not called Allison and Lilia, but it was from the same world. So you had Allison for 3 volumes. Then it focused on the daughter of Allison and Will, called Lilia, for 3 volumes. Then you had, I think, another part of the series, which was with Lilia's friends for, I think, a few volumes. And then they had a 2 volume epilogue with all the characters and stuff like that to tie up the world, which is really neat. But the anime only focused on the Allison novels, those 3 novels, and the Lilia part of the series, which was in the future, which was for 3 volumes or so. And so it's 26 episodes, and 13 episodes focus on Allison and Will, and then it goes into the future, and then the last 12 episodes focus on Lilia and stuff like that, and they're like 3 stories in each arc, so for Allison and for Lilia. But it's a fun little series from Kino's creator and stuff like that. It was from the mid-aughts and stuff like that. And remember we had like Haruhi and all those different otaku shows. This was kind of like one of those breath of fresh airs because it's just a show about adventure and stuff like that.
Okay. Well, as I said, I've already stated my to-do list.
So
I do. Oh, go ahead. One last thing.
I was going to ask. So I'm trying to decide on what long form manga series I should tackle next. So after Prison School, I'm likely going to read Moo by Osamu Tezuka. But I'm trying to decide between, and then I'll probably like catch up with Beastars after that, but I'm trying to decide if I should read Video Girl I or if I should finish Twin Speaka.
Your choice. I mean, I can speak for Video Girl I, and well, that's a favorite of mine. So there's a bias there.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorites.
I wouldn't be able to tell you. Like
Masakazu Katsura almost gets it. Masakazu Katsura is one of those personal faves of mine. And that and Eyes.
Yeah, I liked Eyes too.
So,
but yeah, since both of them are done and stuff like that, if you have all those volumes, then it's like whatever your fancy, right? Whatever you pick up first.
The thing I can't decide.
Well, or maybe I can add another suggestion, although it's not anime. Mo, I mentioned this to you earlier in the week too, I think, but I was looking on Humble Bundle this week, and this is kind of topical because one of the more popular shows right now on Amazon Prime is The Boys. It's been heavily promoted. Latest season is up online on their service. And as many know, that's based on a graphic novel that I had run. And I noted a couple weeks ago that Humble Bundle was offering an ebook version of the entire Boys series, along with Project Superpowers. So the bundle can get as much as, I believe, just under $20 Canadian, and you can get the entire The Boys saga digitally, along with the entire Project Superpowers saga, if anyone's interested. So you can see what the story really was behind the now hit Amazon Prime series. So
I will say this: anyone who hasn't seen The Boys yet, go watch it. It's pretty cool. And Amazon's doing this really cool thing where they're releasing it week to week instead of all at once, which is pretty nice.
It's not a binge watch in that
Check
sense.
out the boys.
Why are we doing that?
It's honestly it's the best of both worlds. So it's a 8-episode second season. They released the first 3 episodes like opening night Friday a few weeks back. And then it's new episode every week until they're done.
So 5 weeks, about a month.
Pretty much, yeah. And that's how it should be. That is how all TV shows should be. Give a couple episodes at the beginning, and then we'll follow you week to week.
That happens a lot. I mean, even in regular broadcast television, you get that scenario. Sometimes during the season premiere, you'll see multiple episodes consecutively.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
So that's actually a formula you've seen on broadcast TV in the past.
And now they have like the boys after show for it as well, the way The Walking Dead does, which is pretty cool.
Okay. Well, as I said, if you want to read the original comic,
all 12 volumes. All 12 volumes.
Yeah, and for reference, that goes for another 11 days as of this recording, so under 2 weeks. I forgot the exact date. So I had 11. What's today's date? So around the 13th, I think it ends. 13th or 14th of. Hey, you can get something just in time for Thanksgiving in Canada. But there's one final recommendation, right?
Oh, dude, did you guys hear? Former reality TV host has tested positive for COVID-19.
Oh, we'll talk about that on the air, off the air. Well, I guess that's it. That's all we got for this episode. Thanks for listening. Good night from Toronto. Join us again for another edition of the Anime Roundtable.